There was a secret hidden among the shelves of an old Bronx grocery store. A secret no one knew about the old man who had been working in the same place for 30 years. When this truth was revealed, everyone who thought of him as old-fashioned would be shocked. This story began on a cold winter day in 2019. Tony's Corner Store, a small grocery store located on 149th Street in the heart of the Bronx, was one of the neighborhood's oldest businesses. While seemingly ordinary from the outside, the shop held a much deeper story inside. Antonio Rossi opened his shop at 6 a.m. that morning, as usual. This 72-year-old son of Italian immigrants had been following the same routine for 30 years. With its old-fashioned cash register, handwritten notebooks, and the absence of any technological devices, time seemed to stand still. The first customer of the morning was Marcus, a 22-year-old college student. He walked in with his AirPods in, his latest iPhone in hand. He rolled his eyes slightly. He had to deal with this old man again. "A coffee and a sandwich," Marcus said, without looking up from his phone. Antonio slowly prepared the coffee. Noticing his trembling fingers, Marcus thought to himself, "If he learned how to use technology, everything would go faster." "Can I pay with a card?" Marcus asked. "I'm sorry, young man, we only accept cash," Antonio said in his typical apologetic tone. Marcus angrily fished out some coins from his pocket. "Still cash in 2024? Incredible," he muttered, his voice loud enough for Antonio to hear. This scene was typical of many young customers in the neighborhood. They saw Antonio as a backward, technology-phobic old man. They called him "sweet old man," but they also frequently commented, "He's stuck in the past." That afternoon, Sarah Chin, a 28-year-old lawyer living in the neighborhood, stopped by his shop. Always in a hurry, Sarah was irritated by Antonio's slow movements. "Uncle Tony, I'm in a hurry. Can you hurry up?" Sarah said, checking her watch. Antonio smiled. "Of course, honey, as fast as you can." But Sarah's patience had worn thin. As she took out money from the register, she said harshly, "You really need to get a card machine. This isn't how you do business these days." A sad expression crossed Antonio's face, but he said nothing. After Sarah left, he took a deep breath and continued organizing his shelves. That evening, 19-year-old Isabella Rodriguez arrived with her mother. Isabella was studying at NYU and always made her displeasure with Antonio clear. "Mom, why do we still shop here? There's a modern grocery store just 2 blocks away," Isabella said in English. Her mother, Maria, shopped quietly. She'd known Antonio for years, but she'd never explained to her daughter why she held him in such high regard. Throughout the winter months, these kinds of scenes recurred. Young customers continued to view Antonio as charming but outdated. Jasmine, a 24-year-old who works on OnlyFans, would poke fun at the shop on her Instagram stories, writing, "Vintage shopping experience LOL." But Antonio's true story was very different. When he arrived in the Bronx in 1989 as a young father, his dreams were big. He opened this small shop with savings he'd brought from Italy. His goal wasn't just to make money, it was to serve the neighborhood. In his early years, he closely observed the financial situations of families in the neighborhood. Single-parent families, unemployment, health problems. Behind every story was a struggle. In 1995, he made his first big decision. His neighbor, Mrs. Johnson's son, Mark, needed a college scholarship. He was a very talented boy, but his family had no money. That night, Antonio allocated $5,000 of his own savings and anonymously donated it to Mark's scholarship fund. Mark got into Columbia University and is now a successful doctor. He never learned who helped him. This was just the beginning. Over the years, Antonio developed a system. Every month, He deposited 60% of his income into an account he called the special fund. With this money, he covered the school fees of talented children, paid hospital bills for sick families, paid off the rent for unemployed fathers, provided medication for elderly neighbors. He did all of this completely anonymously. No one knew that this ordinary grocer was actually the neighborhood's secret angel. When the technological age began in 2010, everyone wanted Antonio to set up an online ordering system and buy a card machine. But he resisted. Technology meant recording every transaction, and he never wanted his donations to be exposed. If he had a card machine, he would have bank records. If he had an online system, he would leave a digital trail. Antonio preferred to remain anonymous, so he continued using the old methods. Every evening, after closing the shop, he would sit in his small room and plan how much he would help each family. In his old notebook, he would note the circumstances of each family in the neighborhood, who was sick, who was unemployed, which child needed school money. The big test came in 2018. A fire broke out in the neighborhood, leaving 8 families homeless. While everyone was trying to launch a fundraiser, Antonio quietly took action. That night, he secured a $50,000 loan using his own house as collateral, solving the housing problems of an entire family. No one understood where the help came from. In February 2019, Antonio's 30-year-old secret was about to be revealed. That cold winter day, Isabella came to his shop with her mother. As usual, she was indifferent to Antonio. He was facing financial difficulties at university, and his family couldn't help him, forcing him to work part-time jobs. "I don't understand why this old man is still working this old-fashioned way," Isabella told her mother in Spanish. Maria looked at her daughter sternly. "Isabella, show him respect." "But Mom, look at this place. It's like stepping back in time. He doesn't even have a card reader." Antonio understood everything. He spoke Spanish, but he didn't show it. He smiled and bagged his groceries. That evening, when Antonio opened his notebook, he saw Isabella's name. Maria wrote that she tried to get a bank loan to pay for her daughter's school, but was rejected. Isabella had an excellent GPA and a chance to get into law school, but she didn't have the money. The next day, Antonio started work earlier than usual. He called his old friend Michael at the bank. "Mike, I have a favor to ask you. Can we set up an anonymous education fund for the Rodriguez family's daughter?" 2 weeks later, Isabella came running home, holding a letter. "Mom, an anonymous benefactor is going to cover all my law school expenses. It says anonymous educational grant." Maria's eyes welled up. She had a suspicion in her heart about who was behind it, but she couldn't be sure. In March, a major crisis erupted in the neighborhood. Many families lost their jobs due to the coronavirus. Unable to pay rent, the curfews further hampered their lives. That's when Antonio made his biggest decision. He distributed his entire retirement savings to 25 families in need in the neighborhood. A total of $180,000. His life's savings. He reached each family through different means. Some received anonymous letters, some through church, and some through neighbors. In April 2020, Marcus received one of these aid packages. His family had become unable to pay their rent. One morning, they found an envelope on their doorstep. Inside was $3,000 and a note. "Times will pass. Just focus on studying." Marcus wondered where the money had come from, but he never learned. In the summer of 2021, Antonio's health began to decline. Diabetes and heart disease were taking their toll. But he had no plans to close his shop. There were still families in need. One day, Sarah arrived at his shop and found Antonio sitting in a chair, gasping for air. "Uncle Tony, are you okay? Should I call a doctor?" No, honey, I'm just a little tired, Antonio said, breathing heavily. Sarah felt different that day. For the first time, she realized how fragile this old man was. In October 2021, a major storm arrived. The neighborhood lost power and experienced flooding. Many families lost their homes. Local government was slow to act. Antonio played his last card. He used his store as collateral to take out a $75,000 loan to cover temporary housing and repair costs for all the affected families. This time, he made a splash. Bank records were available. In November, residents decided to get together and organize a fundraiser. Sarah Chin organized the meeting. Isabella attended, and so did Marcus. "We need to help the families affected by the storm," Sarah said. "But I noticed something strange. Someone already helped everyone. Anonymously." Isabella wondered. "What do you mean?" "My banker friend told me. Someone took a massive loan against Tony's corner store to help everyone. But Uncle Tony doesn't seem like someone who has that kind of money." Marcus was confused. "Wait, you mean the old guy from the grocery store? He looks like he can barely afford his own rent." Sarah was thoughtful. "Exactly. That's what's strange." That evening, Sarah examined the bank records in more detail. Thanks to his legal background, he had access to public records. What he discovered shocked him. Over the past 25 years, the money transfers from Tony's corner store had been astronomical. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, into dozens of different accounts, in dozens of different names. Sarah investigated further. These names were all people living in the neighborhood. And they all had one thing in common: families in dire straits. The papers in her hands trembled as she realized the truth. Antonio Rossi wasn't just a grocer. He had been the neighborhood's secret benefactor for 30 years. This seemingly ordinary old man had touched thousands of lives. Sarah called Isabella and Marcus. "I need to talk to you urgently. Meet me at Tony's." That evening, the three of them gathered at the cafe across from the store. Sarah spread out the documents on the table. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to them. "Uncle Tony, he's not just a grocer. He's been secretly funding education, medical bills, rent payments for 30 years. Isabella's hand flew to her mouth. "No way. You mean the scholarship I got? Check this." Sarah pointed to a document. "Rodriguez, Isabella Educational Grant. $45,000. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. He paid for my law school?" Marcus searched for his name among the documents. "Johnson, Marcus Emergency Family Support. $3,000. His voice started to shake. "That money, it saved my family during COVID." Sarah continued. "There are dozens of names here. Medical bills, educational grants, emergency funds. He's helped half the neighborhood." "But how?" asked Isabella. "He looks like he barely makes ends meet." "That's the point," said Sarah. "He's been giving away almost everything he earns. Look at his personal account. He keeps just enough to survive." At that moment, all three of them felt the same thing: shame. Deep shame for judging this old man, for belittling him. Marcus stood up. "We have to do something. He's been taking care of everyone, but who's taking care of him?" The next morning, when Antonio opened his shop, he saw an unexpected sight. Sarah, Isabella, Marcus, and dozens of people from the neighborhood were waiting. They held flowers, gifts, and a banner. "Thank you, our silent hero." Antonio was surprised. "What's going on? Is something wrong?" Sarah stepped forward. "Uncle Tony, we know. We know everything." Antonio's face paled. He realized his secret had been revealed. "We know about the scholarships," Isabella said, her eyes tearful. We know about the medical bills, Marcus added. We know about everything you've done for 30 years, Sarah said. The neighborhood began to applaud. Antonio lowered his eyes. I never wanted anyone to know, he said shakily. But why? Isabella asked. Why did you hide it? Antonio took a deep breath. Because if you know someone is helping, it changes things. People feel obligated, embarrassed. I wanted you to feel normal, proud, not like charity cases. But you sacrificed everything, said Sarah. Your comfort, your technology, your own future. I had enough, said Antonio, smiling. I had a roof, food, purpose. What else does an old man need? Marcus stepped forward. We collected some money for you to say thank you. No, said Antonio, waving his hands. I don't need anything. We know you don't need it, said Isabella. But we need to give it. We've been taking from you for years without knowing. Please let us give back. The money raised was $50,000. The locals had been saving money every week for the last 6 months. But Antonio's answer surprised everyone. If you really want to help me, he said, his eyes shining, use this money for the next family in need. Continue what we started. Together. Something changed in the neighborhood that day. Young customers began to view Antonio differently. He wasn't just an old grocer anymore. He was a teacher who taught them life's most important lesson. True value lies much deeper than meets the eye. From that day on, Sarah had long conversations with Antonio every time she came to the store. She learned life lessons from him. After graduating from law school, Isabella started providing free legal advice in the neighborhood as her first job. Uncle Tony taught me that success means helping others, she would say. After graduating from Columbia, Marcus became a pediatrician and began examining children in the neighborhood for free. Jasmine shared Antonio's story on social media. The video went viral, receiving millions of views. In the comments, thousands of people commented on how they recognized the unseen heroes in their own neighborhoods. When Antonio turned 75 in 2023, the neighborhood prepared a big surprise for him. All the families and children he had helped attended the ceremony they organized for his shop's 35th anniversary. Dr. Mark Johnson, who took the stage that day, said, "This man," pointing to Antonio, "changed my life 28 years ago, and I never knew until today." Other doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, they had all achieved their dreams with Antonio's secret help. Isabella spoke on stage that day. I used to think he was just an outdated old man. I was so wrong. He was the most forward-thinking person I've ever met. He saw our futures when we couldn't even see them ourselves. That day, Antonio cried for the first time. Emotions he had suppressed for 30 years came out. You all, he said into the microphone, you all gave my life meaning. Every dollar I gave, you returned 1,000 times with your success, your happiness, your families. Today, Tony's corner store is still open. There's a modern card machine, but Antonio still uses his old notebook. Young employees help him, but he still pays attention to each customer individually. The young people in the neighborhood see him differently now. He's taught them the most valuable lesson. True wealth lies not in how much you save, but in how much you give. And Sarah, Isabella, Marcus, they too have now established their own secret funds and are following in Antonio's footsteps, because they've learned that true value is never in plain sight. Sometimes the greatest heroes are hidden in the most ordinary guise. Antonio's story isn't just about a grocery store. He reminds us, every person you meet has a story you don't know. And maybe, while you're judging them, they could be the one who changes your life. For 30 years, no one knew his true identity. but he lived every day to build the future of his neighborhood. So the next time you see an elderly grocer, waiter, or janitor, remember, maybe you're standing before a hero, and you don't know their story yet.